Good evening. Welcome once again, and thank you for joining us on today's edition of the Economic Forum Show. I am your host, Yusuf, and today, as usual, we are joined with our economic professor, Professor ABBASS Mohammed EL-KHAMIS. Watch us live this every Monday on our Facebook page at World Television. Like, share, and leave a comment at the comment section below. Today on the show, we are going to hold discussions on the 24-hour economy. Is it a boost for Ghana's economic growth? Stay tuned on the show as Professor will delve in and share his valuable insight with us on the show. And also leave your comments at the comment section below. Professor, welcome to the show.
Thank you once again. Thank you for having us. As usual, we welcome our listeners to this wonderful program where we educate each other on the economic development in Ghana.
Okay. Professor, today we are going to talk about the 24-hour economy. I think the MOHAMMD administration recently launched or announced the launch of the 24-hour economy.
Right.
But today we want to enlighten our fellow Ghanaians to be in a broader perspective. But to start with, Professor, when we talk about the 24-hour economy, what does it mean literally? And how does it typically function in other parts of the world?
Okay, before I talk about how it looks in other parts of the world, I would like to highlight what Mohammed's agenda as far as 24-hour economy is.
Okay.
So I picked up on some key components of it. So he's looking at a situation where we have a three-shift work schedule, which is like a 24-hour. So that's divided into 3 shifts where a worker comes in the morning, another one comes in the afternoon, another one comes in the evening, like it's done in overseas, most part of the countries abroad.
Yeah.
So that's one component of it. The second one that I picked up was the legislative support that he intended to introduce to support businesses that operates the 24-hour economy, which includes labor laws, tax incentives, and regulations to ensure rights and protection of the workers that are going to do that.
Okay.
And then he also has what he termed as reduced power tariffs, a situation where he will reduce the power tariffs for businesses that work during off-peak hours, meaning late nights and stuff like that. And then there's also going to be a financial support for businesses that are tailored towards the 24-hour economy, like in agriculture. And then finally, the export development agenda that he has. He mentioned Accelerated Export Development Council to review initiatives, and then ECOWAS partnership and some of the African trade agreement that's going to be reviewed, all to boost export.
Okay.
So that is what his initiative has. And if you look at the initiative on paper, it looks good. In other countries, it's like that, but it's not like a well cut out program from a government per se. The businesses will evolve to create that situation where the economy automatically run towards the 24-hour economy in other jurisdictions.
Okay.
So there are countries that have done this. You can talk about Singapore, which has a nightlife aspect in certain areas of the economy. You can talk about Dubai, which is a good example of the modern day 24-hour economy. If you go to Dubai, it hardly sleeps because there are people coming in every aspect of the night to shop here and there. Then you talk about New York City. New York City is known to be 24 hours, the city that never sleeps. So all of that is strategic if you look at the way it works. So there are examples where it works, and usually it's a natural consequence of economic activities, i.e. the forces of demand and supply.
Okay.
But for a government to pick it up as an agenda, then the government needs to do a lot more to ensure that we can have such an effect.
Wow, thank you very much. Professor, in your view, what are the core principles or pillars that must be in place in order to ensure that the 24-hour economy will be able to thrive?
I would be specific for Ghana's condition. I don't want to blanket like I want to relate it to Ghana. So if you look at Ghana's economic condition, the situation we have, number one ingredients that we should be talking about before we even go to the 24-hour economy conversation should have been infrastructure, most particularly road infrastructure.
Okay.
So when we are lacking roads, transport is very costly. Very difficult to move around from point A to B. Like right now, as I was coming, I just told you how bad the traffic was.
Yeah.
So if you're going to run the 24-hour economy in Kumasi, and this is what we're dealing with, then you're not being fair to yourself. So infrastructure is key. That's why I said it's a natural consequence of economic activity. When the government takes care of business, the business will take care of the 24 hours. You don't have to make it a mandate on yourself to. Why don't we fix the basics? So it's always the basics that's lacking. If you look at Ghana, and we seem to take these projects and agendas from the top and then throw it into the discussion. And sometimes you can't really see where we're going with that, since we missing the pieces that needs to be established before that could be achieved, like a 24-hour economy.
Yeah.
If I should ask you, since you know your birth, how many roads have we added to Kumasi roads that you grew up to see? Almost like 1 or 2 you can mention.
Yeah.
So that's where we need to be, not the 24-hour economy. Can you provide the infrastructure to support that? Road, energy, power supply. You can ask somebody to work 24 hours when there's power outage every 5 minutes, right? So can we fix those? Then we can have a meaningful conversation about 24-hour economy. What about security? How is our policing? Are we gonna open up shops to stay open only to get robbed? What are we doing about those situations?
Professor, just to chip this in, so economically, is Ghana ready to pursue this policy?
I don't think so, because we're lacking the fundamentals. You can't just jump steps. That's the problem with Ghana and talking big. We always talk big. We talk from the top as if we're there. Honestly speaking, it's very disappointing. When I arrived, I was like, we haven't changed. The roads are the same roads that we right now. It's like the city population has more than doubled, and there's no roads to support that. There's no infrastructure to support it.
Yeah.
So how can you be a 24-hour economy when there's no infrastructure? Where are we going to be driving? You know, already it's chaotic. There's no pavement everywhere. You literally walking on the roads with cars. So when cities are like this, then the first agenda is to provide the infrastructure. When we provide the infrastructure, this is where I don't know whether I would say we get it wrong. I don't think we always trying to skip steps. I want us to go back to the basics. Can you provide infrastructure, skyways, everything coming into the city to Adum, all these areas? This is Roma Hill. That's the center of Kumasi. So how many roads are networked to arrive here? Like in Dubai. I went in December. The road network has more than double from the last time I was there, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
So they working towards infrastructure to support the businesses to stay open 24 hours.
Yeah.
But you are not doing the infrastructure. You want to work from the top. It doesn't work. You have to go down the basics. So I don't think it's gonna work the way they intended to. If they achieve anything, it's gonna be minimal in terms of the benefits. But I don't think we're ready, because the basics are not here. Roads, Accra is jammed. You know, the population is overwhelming, and there's no road network connecting the main city. So how we are trying to achieve all these fancy, slogan, economic
When we are not
goals.
economically ready.
We're not.
Yeah, Professor. So looking at the nature of this policy, I mean, what sectors of the economy are best suited to benefit immediately in case this policy is implemented?
If it's implemented, the goal though was to help with the export. So the benefits on the export side, I would say, if with effort we will achieve something in terms of job creation, because the export sector is going to get boosted when things are open 24 hours to get businesses to operate, like when you bring in things, then you have 24-hour window, economy to support that, so that it never shut down. If you need to get the things quickly to your customers, then you can go to the port or the harbor and get your stuff out. So import is going to get boosted. That's a good sector of the economy. They talked about agro business. That's if we add value, meaning we have to create companies or factories that will process our agro business. Again, how do we get the products to these manufacturing companies? Roads. We're not doing that. So I wanted to see infrastructure as the key component I just read out the components of the policy to you, but infrastructure was not mentioned.
Yeah.
That should have been the driver of that policy. If infrastructure was number one, then I know that we can achieve a lot. But without infrastructure, meaning roads not getting done to satisfy this condition of 24 hours, then maybe barely anything can be achieved with the intended purpose. Yeah. So that's what I say.
Yeah, dear viewers, we hope you are enjoying the show as we are holding this discussion with Professor Abbas. Stay tuned, like, share, and also leave your comments, because Professor is really enlightening us on the 24-hour economy policy, and he's also sharing his valuable insight with us. Professor, so how could a 24-hour economy directly boost Ghana's GDP?
If the infrastructure issue is solved, because that's key. All right, infrastructure issue is solved, things are opening up. Agro-business is integrated, not only agro-business, manufacturing as a whole will be enhanced with 24-hour economy, like textiles. All right, textile industry. You talk about other aspect of the manufacturing sector. If all of these can be done, then what's going to happen is it will increase job opportunities for the youth, especially in a country with an unemployment of 13%. So we would have increased job opportunities for individuals. With job opportunities for for youth, or the population, is going to help with what? Purchasing power. Purchasing power is going to drive the GDP growth when people are able to buy things. So that is what needs to be done. But in the condition that we find ourselves, we need to solve the basic. It's a good agenda, but the agenda should be comprehensive enough to resolve the basic underlying condition that needed to happen before 24-hour can be successful. So that has the potential to increase GDP, no doubt. On paper, the way it was written is a good agenda, on condition that we can solve the most basic infrastructure: energy, power, and road networks.
Yeah. But Professor, I mean, Ghana has a number of unemployed graduates as a nation, but in what ways might this policy reduce youth unemployment or underemployment?
If it's connected, like it's mentioned, they mentioned agro-business, they mentioned opportunities for some sectors of the economy to stay up 24 hours, like the tech hubs, all these areas like a Silicon Valley can approach. I know that was in the conversation when I was listening to them. They have that also as part of the agenda they're looking at to incorporate into all these. So if everything they're saying can be achieved with the basic infrastructure like energy, internet, reliability is going to be key in ensuring all those sectors are open. So with the tech hubs and Silicon Valley can approach opening 24 hours, then the youth will be encouraged to, go into those sectors. And then after that, you also have to look at apprenticeship, training, capacity building. That's very important. So if you can train, vocation jobs, all of these things is going to help with a 24-hour economy. And then trying to formalize the informal sector, get people off the street. Maybe we have to create a marketplace, something that's more formalized, and encourage people to go there. It's open 24 hours. It's something we can do, but it has to be really comprehensive.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question on this, because looking at our market structure, most of the businesses are private-owned businesses.
Yes.
So do you really think the government can convince them or integrate its agenda onto these people?
That's a whole topic that we can discuss another time. Yes, the answer is a big yes, we can, but it has to be driven by incentives. We have models. Rwanda has done that. Other countries have done that, where I've seen it in Tanzania. I was in Tanzania and I saw how they slowly got people off the street, but the infrastructure is the center of everything. So that's why I say you can't solve the problem from the middle. You have to solve from the bottom and address the issue. The issue is guiding our shopping party, right? Instead of people on the street right behind you, why don't we change the mindset and encourage the informal sector to participate with some incentive. Some of the incentives I've read in other jurisdictions is to encourage them to get off the street with the promise of signing them up for retirement benefits, and then you matching their contribution.
Meaning, even being an informal sector,
yes,
they will get retirement.
They get retirement, but they have to be formalized. And guess what? The government gets more benefit because then you're able to tax them. Because you will give a condition of being in your network. All right. So now you get them on the tax, and then you also pay them back a contribution towards their own retirement. Who doesn't want a retirement? Because they will be here for 20 years and they will spend all their money and end up sometimes with nothing.
Yeah.
Most of them. But if you assure the person that if you come into our network, meaning if you get formalized, we give you identification, you become registered with the registrar, you have your tax identification, and then you pay your taxes and you collect the taxes for the government for sales tax, because most of the transactions here are not captured in the system.
Yeah.
So you can do all of that. The business is not going to get hit. The business is actually going to benefit. And the entrepreneur is actually going to benefit more. This is the Rwandan example I'm telling you.
Okay.
Where they give them pension schemes and they match the contribution to the pension when it begins at 5%. So if your sales volume, let's say, is $5,000, and you're willing to contribute 5% of your monthly sales to the pension, the government will match it another 5%. So now you have 10%. And on top of that, the government has visibility, or you will pay the taxes that's required based on your sales volume, whatever the tax is. So these are all something that we can do comprehensively and get people off the street. But before you even do that, you have to create the infrastructure. You can't skip the infrastructure and solve a problem. You have to solve the infrastructure issue, which means the market needs to be built.
Yeah.
Spacious and encouraging, people to go off the street. Because if these vendors, these people running the streets are not here, the customers will follow them wherever they are. But you can set them in somewhere far. If it's here, KJJ is here. If KJJ can be networked properly, I haven't seen the new model yet. I'm yet to visit. But if it can be networked properly to encourage people to participate there without having to pay, large amount to get a store, all these can be done. You can bring somebody in without him paying a dime, but eventually you will recoup your money. Is the government ready to do that? But when you give it to private individuals or politicians, they want the money up front.
Yeah.
And that's the dilemma we have. We're solving the problem, but we make it worse. KJT was better the way it was than now, because now we have the structure, but nobody is benefited.
Yeah.
Everybody has been pushed out. And we have chaos everywhere. You can't drive around here. It's because we didn't think through the process. If the government really wants to solve it, then the government must take it back. Don't leave it to the individuals to sell the stores. You want the money to be paid, give them time. Spread out the payment. Don't let them feel the effect. Eventually they will pay. All right? Make it affordable. If you get it filled out, first come, first serve, then you can open another one. We have places, space. We have the one down here, Asafu, right?
Yeah.
We have another one that's abandoned. Why can't we build it? Yeah. And Croft
was also abandoned. Yeah.
So all these things have been abandoned. And trust me, if you incentivize people to move away from the hub, like from this place, they will go there, and we will drive with good roads to get there. So everything we're going to talk about needs to be networked. So if infrastructure is lacking, then solving a problem becomes very difficult. And that's where we are. Like, we don't seem to want to solve the main problem, but we want to solve it from the top. All right. So that's how you can achieve that.
Yeah, Professor, let's talk about energy supply and security challenges. Now, you are talking about we have to link, or we have to upgrade road networks and our market centers, and the infrastructure basically has to be adequate. So now, if let's say we have a system whereby someone has to work, let's say 2 or 3 shifts, which means someone would have to work from either 10 p.m. to let's say to the morning. In this case, Now, security and energy supply. What is your comment on this? Do you think we are ready to pursue such a policy in our situation right now?
That's why I wanted to see the real policy incorporated in 24 hours that has to do with energy supply, power supply. Until that's addressed, you know, they mentioned power, uh, tariff incentive, you know, like credit to incentivize people to work off peak hours. As an incentive, they're gonna give you, you know, reduce bill or tariff they call it. But instead of that, I'd wanted to see a policy around how we can ensure 24-hour supply as a security concern. And that's what I'm saying. So we're looking at infrastructure. The road, they didn't mention it as a key driver to what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And that has to come. Then the lights, the energy, the power needs to be up 24 hours for security reasons. All right, because you don't want to be going to work in the dark. If you want to come from, let's say, this is Roman Hill, you want to come from, you know, let's not go far. As why I say coming down.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in the dark coming. So what is the security? That's number one. Then number two, what is our security personnel issue? Have we addressed how we're gonna secure all these places and the roads and stuff like that? The policing. These are issues we need to address squarely before we get to really the implementation. So I hope that they're looking at it, but it's not spelled out like really clearly what needs to be done as far as infrastructure, energy or power supply, because you can't be doing doom so in 24-hour economy. That's no. You can't have that. All right. In jurisdictions where they have it, like you take city like New York City, for example. I think I lived in New York City for close to 10 years. There's only been one power outage.
In 10 years?
In 10 years. One power outage, because it supports the infrastructure. You talk about cities that has skyscrapers of more than 100 floors. So you can't have the power up. It's not negotiable. Somebody will get fired.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then you have road networks. New York City is an island. It's surrounded by water. People don't know. A lot of people don't even. That means everybody coming into that island needs to cross water. So how many bridges is connecting New York City? We have tunnels, about 2 tunnels, underwater coming into the city. Then over the water, you have more than 4 bridges. That's a country that's ready to have a 24-hour economy.
Yeah.
But here we are on the dry land, we can't even drive. So let's go back to the basics. So I don't think we really ready, but it's a good idea on paper, but implementation and achieving good results, it's not so much about implementation. You can say you did it. You can launch it like we did with one district, one factory. We launched it, we did something, and what's the results? Nothing.
Yeah.
So you can launch anything you want to launch, but would you achieve the desired results? How much of the GDP can you push in terms of job creation leading into GDP growth? That the connection is very small.
Yeah. Professor, thank you very much. Now, are all these conditions favorable for launches of the policy in Ghana?
The economic indicators would drive you to say yes, because it's challenging. All the indicators are showing high unemployment, you know, inflation is still around, it's not gone. Most of our inflation is what they call it, import driven. So if you're going to solve it, a 24-hour economy that's implemented really well from the agro base, because they mentioned agro processing sector, that would have helped that. So the economic indicators will drive you to say yes. But the reality is the approach needs to be re-looked at.
Yeah.
Economically, yes, it's something that we should think about. There's nothing wrong with you having a strategic areas, let's say in Kumasi, a doom that is going to run 24 hours. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, but does the infrastructure support it? If we don't even build roads, do we have power 24 hours to ensure that the place is lit up? If it's a market or a street that we intend to have, all right, it's lit up 24 hours and it's security. There's, security, the sense of security that we can go in here and nothing will happen. All these things needs to be happening.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Until we address the basic issues, then everything becomes a write-up. Everybody can write a theory about what they think the solution is. The problem is how much of the implementation have we done. Everybody should be honest to themselves. You can look at your life, whatever your years is. Ask yourself, if you're 30 years, how many roads have we built? Do we have 30 years? Meaning every year we build one road? No. Let's go half, 15 years.
Yeah.
Half of your life. Have you seen roads come up half of your life? 15? No. Maybe 10, 5. Barely can you count 3. I left here 20 something years. I can only see one near a life. That's the only thing I see, which is, confusing as it stands right now, because there's nothing, amazing about it. But the rest of the roads are the same roads. They actually got worse. There's no maintenance on the roads. There's no addition to the roads. And even, it's just crazy. You talk about Kumasi Accra Road, it's like a nightmare. So for how many years do we have to be talking about this?
The main road, the Kumasi Accra Highway road, is also...
That's why I say it's a nightmare. And we're talking about 24-hour economy. Let's be honest to ourselves. Can we solve the basics and stop trying to, tickle ourselves, to talk good on paper, to look like we're doing something amazing? No, let's do the basic. Fix the roads. Add more. Skyways, technology is here. Chinese people will help you build it. They're here as it is. Let's take advantage of what they know and get them to help us build all these roads so we can start moving faster, because we're reducing productivity. All right. Yeah. If I was meant to be here at 5 o'clock and I got here at 5:30, what did I do with the 30 minutes wasted on the road? Imagine that if it was a productive activity I have to do, I just lost 30 minutes of activity.
Yeah.
So that's how we have to process. Time spent on the road takes away from our productivity. And that's what advanced countries are trying to reduce. That's why they come up with alternative routes to everywhere. Like in Texas, where I'm coming from, whatever major road, there's an alternative. For every highway, there's what we call service road. So if the highway is, is faster because they put tolls on the highways. So if you want to drive local, you go down. Like these tricycles, they would have been driving on the bottom. And then the real cars will go on the top so they can move faster. It's a simple solution as that. There's no limit to how high you can go. So you can't tell me that there's no space. Yes, the houses are all over, but we can go higher.
Yeah.
There's nobody in the sky, right? So why don't we put the roads on the sky?
In this case, you're talking about building higher bridges.
Highways, skyways.
Skyways.
Not even bridges. Bridges is to cross something. We don't need to cross anything. We just have to take the same road and double it up on the top. Skyways. So cars go up and leave the tricycles on the bottom with people. So you alleviate the pressure on the car. So like we were driving here, I would have driven in 50 minutes to get here, but it took us more than 45 minutes. So that's the wasted productivity we're talking about.
Yeah.
What if there was highway? Because it's just one road coming here. I could have been on the highway, especially if Edum is here, and there will be 2 or 3 exits before you get to the main Edum. So Roma Hill is one of the hardest spot in terms of business. An exit would have brought me here with no problem in 50 minutes if there was a skyway. So I connect to the skyway, I drive, and then I get off here in 50 minutes rather than the 45 minutes going through the troubles and the frustrations on the road. Because you sharing the road with people, with animals, with cars, with tricycles, everything.
Yeah, Professor, thank you. Now, we often hear about these politicians coming up with policies. It sounds nice, and they talk too much. So what metrics can we use to measure if this is a win-win policy? For example, you did give an example with the one village, one district,
Just one factory.
one district, one factory. And they also came up with something called the one village, one dam policy. It all sounds nice, but what metric can we use to measure if this government comes up with a policy? Is this a win out? Is this a success, or are we failing? To the average Ghanaian, how would the average Ghanaian get to have an insight on if this is a win-win policy or not?
For 24 hours specifically, you have to look at the productivity growth, because if people are gonna work around the clock, that means they have to be able to produce more. If it's services, they have to do more. If it's production, they have to do more. So everything, we have to see the growth rate in productivity. All right, how much does a common Ghanaian now do with 24-hour economy?
Yeah.
Then that will translate into job growth. So one key indicator that we have to do, economic indicator, is to look at unemployment rate. Has it been reduced? From now it's about 10 to 11%, 12%. So can we bring it down with this policy to say 9%? So can we credit that to 24-hour economy? And then overall GDP growth. We're growing at around less than 5%. Can we accelerate the growth to say 8% and credit it to 24-hour economy? We need to see it. If 24-hour economy is here, you will feel it. You will see it. You will have a friend or yourself working 24-hour economy. Because you see, the whole thing about 24-hour economy is not something that has to be superficial. Like I began with the conversation, that it has to be natural. When I say natural, I mean it has to be driven by demand and supply. If you have a business, number one, if the customers can afford to participate or buy the things you're selling, and they require that you stay longer, won't you open and stay longer?
Yeah, you will.
So until we face, you have to solve the demand side problem, meaning the people's ability to buy. That's why I said, let's not jump ropes. We don't have infrastructure. People are unemployed. People don't have the ability to buy. People are still waiting. Some people are still waiting to get paid. So let's address these issues, because it doesn't matter how long you open. If people don't have the ability to buy, what are they going to do when you open 24 hours? They're not going to show up. So let people get paid well, and then they will participate in the economy, and they create their own 24 hours. Like in our business, during the season where we busy in our clothing business in the US, the business is driven by the customers. We will write that we open till 10, but during peak hours, we stay till 4 a.m. on the day of Eid. We couldn't close the business because the customers are there.
Yeah.
So that's your 24-hour economy. It's not something that the government has to dictate to us. And then look at it on a larger scale. Texas has $1 trillion economy. The whole Ghana is about 67 billion economy.
And Texas is one city.
One state.
One state, yeah.
One state with 3-point-something trillion dollars don't even run 24-hour economy. So that tells you it's demand and supply. You don't have to force it. That's why I don't see the whole urgency of saying I want to do 24-hour economy. Just solve the problem. The economy will evolve. It will figure itself. In Texas, there are businesses that will stay till midnight. There are ones that will run 24 hours, the energy sector. That's manufacturing. You don't have to tell them. It's just that they have demand. When somebody is waiting for you to deliver their gas, their fuel, you will open 24 hours so you can meet the deadline or the delivery schedule that you have. So this is not government driven. These are private business driven 24-hour economy. And it's only few sectors. So we have our friends from Ghana who work in those industries. They work overnight. And those of us who are not in the 24-hour economy discussion, we work our office hours and come home. And our business, private business, works till 10 p.m. If push comes to shove, we go to midnight. If the customers demand, we extend. So nobody is telling you to do anything. So that's why I say it's a natural occurrence. So you don't have to bring it like a policy like we're doing, because then it becomes something that people are forced to do when the economy doesn't really support it. You don't have energy supply. You don't have power supply 24 hours.
Good
You don't have roads. You don't have. Can we like fix the basis and we get there? All right. It looks good on paper, but I don't think it's necessary at this time.
Yeah, yeah, Professor, thank you very much. It has been a really insightful and educative conversation so far. Professor, if you had the opportunity to advise the government directly, what would you emphasize on as your top three priorities for making the 24 economy impactful and make this initiative work for a long time?
I will re-emphasize on infrastructure. I can't go past infrastructure because I want us to be more practical than theoretical. On the book, it looks good, but we're talking about theory. I'm walking the streets of Kumasi. I'm seeing what I'm seeing. So let's solve that. I drove to Kumasi from Accra. That's a big issue. Why can we address that? So if you address those, then we can go to the next step and think about the 24-hour economy, which sectors needs us to support them. And they will tell you what they need to encourage them to stay open 24 hours. You don't have to tell them. You don't even have to encourage anyone to do that. Business will drive that themselves. Private businesses are the driver. So when we think about government trying to do everything in our economy, we get it wrong. Advanced countries is the private business. All you have to do is to create enabling environment. Texas, highways everywhere, skyways. The moment we start jamming, they're thinking about throwing another highway. That's why we have the most skyways in the world. I think we're in the top 5 because of that, because they don't want traffic. They want people to get to work when they need to get to work. We don't even have 24-hour economy. Now fully, it's only a few sectors, and they all grouped in strategic location outside the city. So you driving towards that, there's no traffic. That's the strategy. They don't want the 24-hour economy to come to your city. They push it outside. So as you're driving away from the city, that's where the businesses are running 24. They mostly manufacturing. So let's solve the infrastructure. And then the next thing is the energy crisis. Let's get over the Dumso situation. And then we're ready. Then the third one is to look at building capacity for the youth and then training and getting the informal sector. And then as part of infrastructure, I can re-emphasize the marketplace so we can have some sanity in how we do businesses.
Yeah, Professor, thank you very much. Now, Professor, I would like you to address or summarize this whole conversation to our listeners who are unfortunate to be fluent or familiar with the English language. Now, let's switch our accent to the Hausa language. What will you tell our viewers on our discussion today?
Masu sauraren mu, ina jin yau kun ji muna tattaunawa kan wani abu da aka kawo da ake ce da 24-hour economy da shugaba ya yi zancen shi na jin cikin makon da ya wuce last week, inda yake cewa yana son watan business ko kuma harkan sadda sayarwa wa'ansu ko harkan kasuwa da kansa ya stay abin nan open, watan yana aiki bai kullewa, kusan nufin shi kenan. To shine muka tattauna kan cewa wannan gaskiya wani abu ne da yanzu za ce tsarinmu na gana mun kai wajen, ko kuma akwai wasu ababen da ya kamata a yi kafin a kai wajen. To a gaske abin da muka gano ko muka tattauna ne shine da sauran mu kafin mu kai wajen wannan. Dan in ka lura garukan da ke yi kamar Singapore, Dubai da New York City, inda ake ce da the city that never sleeps, wato garin da ba kwana ko bai kwana. To in za ka lura da wayannan garuka, akwai wasu ababen da suke da shi da yasa suke yin wayannan ababa da mu bamu da shi. So in dai ba mu kai wannan ba, kamar na farko wato anya na mota, shi yayi very critical, road infrastructure da bamu da shi. To in dai bamu da irin wannan, har yanzu muna fama da road da aka gina mana wasu shekaru 60 da ya wuce. To ya za mu yi mu ce mun kai mu rani garin mu 24 hours, mutane ma tafiyar minti 5 ya kai ka kamar kusan awa. Ai ba yayin ci gaba da haka. To kan wannan muke. Sannan na biyu kuma muka duba zancen za a stay 24 hours cikin duhu za mu zauna ko kuma da wuta. Dai har yanzu muna fama da zancen lantarkin mu, menene 24 hours bai da ma'ana. So har yanzu dai mu da kanmu gaskiya mu gano cewa abin da yana da kyau akan takardan an rubuta, amma a gaskiya ba mu da abin da ke gwada cewa mun kai inda za mu yi mu ci amfanin wannan abin nan policy din da ya kawo. So har yanzu kan wannan muke. Akwai wayansu kuma kaman training mutane ko yara da ke tasowa, training da ya kamata a gwada musu saboda su iya su bar abin nan titi su shiga cikin irin wayannan ayyukan da ake cewa zai kawo 24 hours zai kawo. So wayannan training sun din ya kamata wannan kuma mu duba mu fara yin wayannan ababa sannan mu kai mu cewa mun kai 24-hour economy. So inda muka saya da tattaunawar mu kenan, da fatan mutane sun fahimci abin da muka faɗi.
Masha Allah, Professor, muna godiya sosai. Okay, Professor, before we wrap up the show, you said that you gave an example or gave a reference with Texas. You said that the private individuals of the private sector actually drives the economy. So what advice would you give to the private sector here in Ghana? Because we noticed that some of the private sectors do have the potential to run 24-hour economy without even the government intervention. So what advice would you give to the private businesses here at home?
I think they have to encourage the conversation with the government and make a case for improvement on the things they need, like the infrastructure that we talked about. Because businesses are hit, some businesses or most business, any business can get hit by the conditions we have. Like access to market is very critical. Whatever it is you do, you want people to be able to access your business. So if infrastructure is lacking, then we have to have a conversation. Maybe we have a different approach to how we solve this issue. And private sector can help with that, because some of these issues can be solved with a private sector partnership with the government. So the private sector should not only participate in one direction, they have to get involved in the solution too of the things that they need for the government to do. That's why I want the private sector to drive, right? Like if it's the road infrastructure, why don't we find a partnership with the private sector that can actually take over that? Because the government, for the most part, don't do a good job when we leave things to them, if you look at it, because of the issue of politics, a lack of the continuity that's associated with the business. But if the private sector is really serious to move their business to the next level, then maybe they should offer solution that they will be the drivers for the things that they need to encourage them to be able to grow as a business. So I think there has to be a conversation at that level, yes.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much. It has been a really educative discussion on today's episode of the Economic Forum Show. Just viewers, you can also leave your comment in the comment section below, and also like and share the program so that others will also benefit from Professor's valuable insight today. I am your host, YUSUF Adam, and as usual, we are here with our economic professor, Professor ABBASS Mohammed EL-KHAMIS. And today we did have discussions on the 24-hour economy, whether if it is a boost for Ghana's economic growth. Stay tuned with us next week on another edition of the Economic Forum Show. Until next time, it is bye for now.
Thank you.